All right, I got my guy, John Bromley, on the show today. He's the founder and CEO of Charitable Impact. It's an online giving platform that helps to develop, navigate, and carry out charitable goals. John, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, Joel. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We have mutual friends that speak very, very highly of you. And just, I think what you're doing is so unique and disruptive. And I love it because as an entrepreneur and someone who loves to do good in the world through my own work, I always felt like there was even more I could do. And I wasn't, and I want to give back. And I want to give back in more meaningful ways, not just like, donating money to these, the St. Luke's Foundation. Not that that's bad, right? It doesn't have any a personal attachment to me. It's just there's no like emotional connection with that. I don't even know where the money goes. Like, what does it mean? I raised $100,000 for cancer. Great. I like still doesn't mean anything to me. I don't know where that money goes or what it does. And so I think what you're doing is really cool, and we're gonna get into that. But just for people that don't know you, like talk about what charitable impact is, but I also am just curious, like, how'd you get here? Was there like a big aha moment that made you finally leave your corporate? I think had a background in corporate finance, right? And that got you to what you're doing now, which is with charitable impact.
Yeah, well, first of all, the way you just talked about yourself as a donor is super common. So, uh, anyone listening who kind of feels the way Joel does, like that's totally normal. And what we'd love to, what I think the world needs is to take that component of, I really want to participate in giving back and feel, and feel good about it. And we need to turn it into, action and things that feel good enough that you're going to consistently, stay involved, right? Kind of like exercise. When you, at the end of the day, you kind of enjoy doing it, you're going to keep doing it. And or when it's good for you, you're going to keep doing it, and that's where we want to get people from a charitable giving perspective. So on that note, that's actually why we started Charitable Impact. Most people give when they're asked, so there's this sort of sales mechanism, this sort of what's called fundraising, but the sales mechanism comes at you, and it's like, hey, do you want to give? And you're like, oh, gee, maybe I should, and maybe you really do want to give, but you react to it, and so first of all, thank you for contributing in those scenarios. That's really great. But the question, medium to longer term, is was that cool enough for you to stay involved? Right. And so what Charitable Impact's doing is we're creating the tools that help you as a donor, regardless of what ultimate charities you want to give to or what causes you choose to support, even how much money you have to give away. And so Charitable Impact gives you your own giving fund. The action is you first put the money into your fund. That's when the tax receipt is issued to you. And then from there, you can redistribute it to any registered charity of your choice once you're ready. So it's kind of analogous to having a bank account, but just for charitable giving. And what we really see through our users who use it most regularly is that they kind of go, oh, thanks, man. Because in the past, no one ever worked for me as a donor. But today, I feel like with Charitable Impact, people are working for me as a donor, and they're not here to sell me on anything other than participate in giving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So talk about that back end piece then. What you just talked about. People don't feel like they're working for you, and so what are you noticing? I guess then the people that are doing, the people that are participating in this charitable impact. What have you been noticing?
Well, I noticed that when they take the time uh, and their own time and use their own thoughts, like their own agency, to choose how they're going to spend their charitable dollars, for example, or their volunteer time, and they put that towards stuff that they've really thought about, that's coming from them rather than from an outside source. They have more joy in doing it,
Yeah.
and 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 also the whole question of like, gee, did I have impact? Did my donation make a difference? That's always a complicated question for what it's worth. If you're interested, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
But but in a context where you're giving towards things that you've chosen yourself, and you even understand a little bit better, the impact piece starts to get a lot easier to understand. Uh, and when you choose it yourself, you're willing to take on more responsibility. So when there are problems, it's not just the charity's fault and gee, all charities are bad. It's also like me as the donor, like, hey, why did I make that decision? And I should take some responsibility too.
Mm, yeah.
So what we
Yeah.
notice of donors in charitable impact is they're kind of more empowered. I mean, to use a bit of a cheesy word, they're more empowered. They take on more responsibility themselves, but then they're also like, this is cool because it is up to me, and this
Yeah.
is a part of my life, and I'm choosing to do this.
That's so key. And even though you're choosing, like when you're in the checkout line and people are, oh, do you want to donate $1 to, like I said, St. Luke's? Because I just got asked that the other day. You know, yeah, I mean, you don't feel like you're in control. You feel like you're just being asked to do it. And it's like, if you don't say yes, then maybe you're a bad person. Maybe you don't love kids with cancer. So, you know, you're a bad person, but you still don't feel like you're in control, even though you're giving that dollar. So that's a big piece, and you get to really drive money and impact to organizations that matter to you.
To you, and that's the key, right? Like all registered charities need money, right? So we shouldn't also fault charities for fundraising selling at you, right? So but what Charitable Impact does is it takes the lens from the donor side, and we're a very donor centric organization. So we come into the donor's shoes and we say, how can we help you create the change you want to see in the world, right? And everyone's unique, right? I mean, kind of like shoes. Some people like Nike, some people like Reebok, some people start with Reebok and then move to Nike. And Charitable Impact would say, as long as you're wearing shoes, we're cool with that. We want to help you, you know, find the best pair of shoes for you at this point in time in your life based on what you're trying to achieve, right? And so we're a very donor-centered organization. And we believe that's important because it's also lacking out there. Like there's nowhere really to go. If you stop and think about it, there's nowhere really to go as a donor to get help, to get support for what you're trying to achieve in the world. And we're really offering that to people. And we think it's cool. And it's really fun, actually.
Yeah. Okay. So talk about that. If I wanted to be involved in charitable impact, what does that look like? Because how would you match me or pair me with the charities that I probably am interested, but maybe I don't even know that exist?
Well, so you start to get into a complicated topic, but let's keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, we're a web-based organization. So you'd come and you can like sign up online. Okay. Now we're just in Canada. Oh, Canada, right? You know,
Oh,
hockey
Canada.
and charity. These are the only two things we do up here. No, but you know, we are just in Canada for today. But and we're what's called a donor advised fund. There are donor advised funds in the United States too. So if people like down in the U.S. Like what we're talking about, just go look for donor advised funds in your area. So you come to our site, you can sign up, and with us, it's really fast and free to create your own giving fund. So now you've got your own account. And the question is, you know, if you want to add money to it, start donating right away. You can. You can add money to it, and then you'll get the tax receipt right away, and then that money will sit in your account until you're ready to use it. So how do you use it? Well, you can use, you know, search and other mechanisms inside our platform to find any registered charity in Canada, right? So you can give to any single charity, any or every charity in the
Yeah.
country, right? So we're not here to tell you this is the best charity, and here's why. So really the agency is then up to the user to choose to spend their charitable dollars the way they want to. When it comes to matching you, we're doing a lot more work today on trying to figure out how to help you find the right charity for you. It's actually a relatively complicated thing because the data around charities isn't as good as we'd want it to be, right?
Yeah.
Number one. And number two, the users aren't always super fluent on what's available to them, right? So they don't even know what their options are. But for example, like, hey, you know, here's a bunch of different causes. You can choose one. And under that cause, you can kind of say, this is a topic that I think is really important, right? So for example, a cause could be something like poverty, and then a topic could be children, right? So where we're going is, you know, tell us a cause you care about, some of the topics related to that, maybe a geography that you care about, you know, specifically. And then here are a subset of charities that you can look at. Um,
Hmm.
the other thing we're doing for what it's worth is we're starting to move, we're not there yet, but we're starting to move in a more social way. So like if Joel and I can connect on charitable impact, now I can start learning from Joel and what he cares about and then factor that into what decisions I make myself.
Oh, that's cool. That's really neat. Question for you, because I know you've facilitated over 1.2 billion with a B in donations. What's been the most surprising trend that you've seen just in philanthropy?
Well, I read you like disruption, Joel. So, like, a trend that worries me, it's not a trend, it's actually a bit of a constant,
Mm.
is everyone loves to say they're charitable, but no one actually takes action.
Hmm.
All right. So, like, it's because it's everyone likes to say they're charitable because it's cool. I mean, it's
Yeah.
cool to be friendly and to help other people. And because it's cool, we like to think of ourselves as nice people who give back. But the discrepancy between the number of people who describe themselves that way and versus the number of people who actually do something at least regularly to really earn that brand, there's a huge discrepancy. So, for example, in Canada, 80% of Canadians say they give back. Only about 15 or 16% of Canadians file a tax receipt annually for their taxes, right? So without getting into the details of what it means, so tax receipt and all that kind of, detailed stuff, I'd just say like, if 80% people said that and 60% filed a tax receipt, I wouldn't be talking the way I am. But when it's like
Yeah.
80% say like 80% say they really are into health and fitness, 10% of people go on a run. It's like, and play sport. It's like, wait a second, something might be wrong here, right?
Right.
So that's the trend that I'm most concerned by, but also interested in, because what it
Yeah.
suggests to me is that everyone wants to be, charitable, and are they choosing not to be, but then saying they are, or is it that they aren't really sure how? They don't really know how to
Yeah.
go about it. And maybe I'm an optimistic Canadian, but like I think that it's closer to the second and not the first.
I think you're right. I think people, looking, I read this a long time ago and it makes so much sense. We are apex predators, but the biggest skill we have that makes us an apex predator is that we collaborate. That makes us very different than some of the other animals out there, right? And through collaboration, I think that's the whole point. And I think that's why we've evolved and gotten where we're at. So I think you nailed it. And again, I'll just speak for myself, being someone who's on the go and just very busy, entrepreneurial mindset, want to create a massive change, want to do good in the world, but I'm not aware of what's out there. And again, I'm just using St. Luke's as an example. That doesn't move me spiritually, emotionally. It doesn't move me at all. I don't. That doesn't do anything for me to say, oh yeah, I want to get behind that. But that's what we're typically just. That's what's like put in our face is St. Luke's and some of these like very just kind of generic. I'm going to say generic, but it's just the typical that you see when people are asking for donations, Red Cross and America, whatever, right? And so those don't move me emotionally and inspire me, right?
Yeah,
So I think
yeah,
that's the big disconnect, personally.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
question
So
then,
what
yeah,
we want to do with that, just briefly. So what we want to
yeah.
do with that is we
How do
want
we
to say
disrupt
like,
that?
well,
Yeah,
and I think it's about, tools and education, but not like read a textbook. It's like tools that say, hey, here's a tool for you that lets you, pardon me, discover things that you do actually move you, right? That you are inspired by, and then you can take action, on those things in your own way. Like some people like to give anonymously, other people want to share their name. Like with Charitable Impact, you can give the way you want to. We say it's you're giving your way with our support. So, so the thing is that when you're just sold the charity, that's when the inspiration is not non-existent, but it's maybe short-term lived. And then your experience as a donor isn't as great as it could be. And then it's like, well, giving's not as cool as I thought it was, so maybe I'll do it less. And that's something that we want to change. And we believe the change comes from empowering donors to really find and carry out their own giving journey, focused on stuff that they can take responsibility for caring about.
yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. You know, I was just thinking too. You were reminding me. I read this book. It's called "Mistakes Were Made, but Not by Me." Parentheses. And the book talks all about our self justification brain. And very interesting to your point is that very often the brain will. They did studies showing that like you'll often always talk about like how good you are and how generous you are, but not very rare will someone describe themselves as not a generous person. It's just like it's almost part of this innate blind spot ability in the brain to even notice it. It's just part of like our mechanism. Like you would never admit to yourself that, oh, I'm a terrible giver. Like that just would never come out. But you would always, you never hear that said, right? John, have you ever heard anybody say like, oh yeah, I'm the worst. I'm just completely not generous. No, like they're always, even if there's like, even if they give very little, they're like, oh, I'm very generous and giving and grateful for everything that I have. So that's, I thought that was interesting. I'll have to find that part for that section for you and send it to you because I think that's really key.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that. And I mean, I'm like that as a human too. Like, hey, I don't make any mistakes, right? That's totally not true. I make a ton.
Yeah.
And this can come out the wrong way, but what I'd like to see more in the giving world is where donors do kind of go, oh, you know what? Mistakes were made by me, right? So instead of like sending money to that charity and then being like, oh, like the charity's ineffective, like it's totally their fault, kind of being like, well, why did I choose an ineffective charity to send money to? Right? Like, it's not
Mm.
about blaming the donor, but it's also starting to saying to those of us who give time and money away, take responsibility for your own actions. And just like in sport, like in golf, I don't know very many people who always hit good shots, but when they hit bad shots, the more interested they are in golf, the more they go kind of, like how can I improve on that next time? Take that kind of constant learning attitude into your giving space. And I mean, giving's just like everything else in life. It's a skill, and it's something and it can be part of our lifestyle. And you don't have to be perfect at it. You just have to stay involved with it. And that's where the joy is found. And that's ultimately where the impact comes from. Because guess how much impact comes from not doing anything?
Yeah. Nothing. That's so interesting too. I think I love that exercising your generosity muscle. It's a skill. I say that quite often. One of the big things, one of my big missions right now is helping men build unshakable marriages and deeper connection with their kids. Because I went through my own pain to purpose story, where being married for 10 years and just not being on the same. I mean, just living an unconscious marriage, and it could have all gone sideways. And now, having come out of it, the other side, I just see that one of my big things I tell men is that marriage is a skill, fatherhood is a skill. And many of us weren't given the skills. And think about this when you grow up. What do we hear? Money doesn't grow on trees, Joel. Protect your money. You're already growing in this scarcity mindset. So for many of us. So generosity, exercising that skill, man, that's a big difference, I think. And you're right, we got to exercise that. It's a habit like anything else,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, a lot of I don't know where you go to learn about being a parent. I'm a parent. Um, where do you go to learn about giving? Right. So it's a similar type of problem. There's really nowhere to go. Charitable Impact would say we want to really, help fill that void, but still it's also about like modeling and like, people who have good parents are often good parents. So it's also so important that if you want to see a generous world, that you act generously because if you don't, no one's going to really learn from you, or they're going to. Well, no, let me say that differently. They will learn from you, and they'll kind of go like, "Oh, gee, I don't need to act generously because there's that person I like and respect, and they're not very generous, but they're these other things that I'm also going to emulate." But if you do act generously, and people see that, and they model that, then you're going to be creating donors around you and creating more people who create impact in the communities that you live in and care about. So, um, like parenting, charitable giving is not one of the things they teach in school. So we need to figure out how to teach it in another way. That's the downside. The upside is, um, I'm not sure how to say it with parenting because I'm a charity nerd. But in the charity world, I would say, um, generosity is innate. Like as human beings, we're
Mhm.
born generous. So what's going for us is this human truth of wanting to give back. Like everyone kind of does want to do that. The question is whether you do it or not. So what's going for us is human truth, but what's working against us is a society that doesn't, as much as it used to, in my opinion, model and showcase charitable giving in a way that makes it feel accessible and participatory to the average citizen, which is critically important, right? It's not just for wealthy people. Giving is not just for the wealthy.
Yeah. So good. So good. Um, do you see also, is there a misconception, do you feel like, about people and giving? You mentioned just that obviously there's a cognitive dissonance, which we were kind of talking about, the 80% that say they're generous and then 16% follow that. So there's that. There's obviously just the blind spot, I think, that we just innately have also. But is there a misconception? And I guess what I'm wondering is there a misconception that's holding people back from giving in the sense that maybe they feel like, if I, I don't want people to know that I'm giving. Maybe like, oh, then because I think there's something about giving and almost like what you said, letting people know that you're giving, not that you're bragging, right? But that you're letting people know, like, I want to create impact, and then that can stir me, who, like, I'm not a millionaire, but I can give back because my next door neighbor John's giving back, and I can do that in a powerful small way too. And look what we can do together through collaboration as community. But oftentimes, if I share that I'm giving, it comes off very egotistical. Do you see that as something that holds people back too?
I think that's a really cool example, and I got lots to say about, like, the topic of share your giving or not share your giving, but and happy to go there. But what I think is actually a bigger problem
Yeah.
for people not participating is this concept that, like, charities are ineffective. Saying that differently, when
Ooh.
I give, I'm not sure I'm making a difference. Like, I think that's one of the biggest, like, top one, top two, top three reasons for people not actually getting engaged when they are born generous and probably legitimately want to be involved. Okay, and that's a really hard problem to solve. Um,
Yeah.
for a multitude of different reasons. Happy to get into detail. We're going to run out of time. But one of the pieces of advice I give to people when they sort of say, either how do I fix that problem, or what should I focus on starting to give to? I talk about the concept of, like, what do you know or what do you love, right? So, for example, as a Canadian, just to be stereotypical, of course, like, we all love hockey, right? Ice hockey. We all love hockey. We all grew up playing ice hockey. It's actually not true, but and you darn Americans are getting so good at hockey, you beat us sometimes, and we're not happy about that. I digress.
Yes.
So for example, if you know and love hockey, you know, and you know the sport a little bit, you played, you watch it on TV, you're better at discerning whether or not, like, someone's playing well, and or whether a team is playing well, than someone who's never played hockey before and only played baseball, right? So same of charitable giving. Like, if you're giving to something that has been a part of your life, that you read about on your own, that you're legitimately interested in, you're going to be better at assessing whether or not the organizations you're choosing to give to are kind of, quote, impactful or not, right? If you volunteer at those organizations, you're going to be even more, able to determine whether they're impactful. So there are ways to deal with this question of, are charities effective or not? But because so many of us just react to the organization that's asking us for money, and we don't necessarily have a relationship with them, and we don't even necessarily know what cause they're focused on, and or what part of the cause they're focused on, we really have no way of assessing whether our money is used well or not. And that's a crappy feeling for a donor,
Big time.
right? I want to blame donors for that, for what it's worth. I mean, just to be frank about it, because it's like, when you have a tool like ours at Charitable Impact, you can start to change that for yourself, right? Like, maybe you do care about kids who have cancer, because, like, that's a horrible thing. But if you're more interested in, kids who fixing the problem of kids who go to school hungry for because you grew up that way, or because something else, and about it, you care about it, it's a lot easier to assess whether or not that money you're giving away is effective, and then that's cool.
Yeah, but on that point, it's going to take ownership on me as a donor to then take that extra step and go volunteer and go do those things that you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and
I'm
I mean,
not disagreeing with you. I think that's
no,
impactful. That's the best part
th-
about it, right? Than just throwing out a check, right?
well, and when we take ownership of things, we tend to enjoy them more,
Big time.
actually, you know. So that's what we want. We want people taking more ownership over their giving. That's actually a really good word, because when they do that, they take more responsibility themselves. and they don't have to stop their life and focus on getting, becoming, the best donor possible. But when you take some responsibility, you go, I gave to your example, I gave to St. Luke's last time, and I'm sure they're a pretty good charity, but like I don't know that much about them. I'm going to try giving to this organization next time because I do know who they are, and like they deal with addiction. And, my brother was, an addict, and he got a lot of help, from this organization or organization that did this type of thing. And I feel like my money going there, can be impactful, but I know it can be impactful. That's the more important part, like taking ownership of the part that I know it can be impactful. And that's where I think more joy comes from. And we have more joy doing anything, including giving, we're more likely to do it. And that's what we want to see.
Are you seeing that trend already through the charitable impact through your communities and through people that are doing those donations? They're taking their tax money and they're donating. Are you seeing them also play an active role in some of these? Has that been shown, or do they give you feedback on that?
Yeah. So first of all, I hear the feedback quite a lot at Charitable Impact where donors come and say, "Hey, like it's crazy, but like I feel like I'm a better, more engaged donor just thanks to having this tool that you've given me, my own giving account. Like I take more ownership over it. I'm more organized. I understand what I did better. I see my data. Wow, like, thanks." And they're kind of feeling like they're getting better at it, but they're just more engaged with it. The other thing, though, I would say is that it's also true with or without charitable impact. Like I think we help you get there quicker because we give this tool to you, but it's not just about us. People who are more purposeful and intentional about how they allocate their time and talent and treasure their money, to the in a giving back type of way are always the people who are more sustainably there, having more fun doing it, and make it a part of their life. Right? It's not just giving money away, and it's all about the impact you create. That's partly true, but it's also the impact that you create on yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Like you talk to people who actually volunteer at organizations and do it with intention and meaning. And they go, don't tell anyone, but I actually have fun doing that. And it makes me a better person. So I actually want to do it for reasons that go beyond helping the kids who go to school hungry.
Yeah. Yeah. I've
And you
never
have to
not.
experience that to know that.
Yeah. You're 100% right. A lot of times, it can be a chore to go volunteer, right? Because I got two kids and just busy. And then when you go do these things, but when you leave those places, you are never upset. You're never like, oh man, I was a waste of my time. Like your bucket is always filled
For
because
sure.
yeah.
For sure. But everything's a chore, right? Going to the gym's a chore. I mean,
Yep.
driving your kids to soccer practice is a chore. Making dinner is a chore. I mean, going to work is a chore. Everything's a chore, right? So, you got to figure out how to like find some intention and meaning and joy in all of our chores because that's what, life is a chore. I mean, you know what I mean? So that's, I don't mean to take that analogy too
I
far,
love
but
how
like
you
it's
phrase
just
that.
like,
Oh, that
okay,
was great.
like, like I joke all the time with I've got my kids are now 11 and 13. Like I work and I drive my kids places, and that's basically my entire life. And it's like,
Yeah.
I joke all the time about how I'm an unpaid Uber driver and all this. I'm sure every parent does the same thing.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, like not to be super cheesy, but I find a ton of meat. It's annoying too, to drive my kids places, and traffic is horrible and all these things. But like at the end of the day, it's like, I get spending time with my kids in a place where they can't run away, because it's in a car, their friends are around, you hear them talk. Like this is part of being a parent, and it's actually quite joyful, if you choose to allow it to be. And
Yeah.
so chores can be fun.
I love how you phrase that because anyone listening is like, he's so right. As you were saying that, I was like, of course, like everything is a chore. Going to the gym is hard, but you do it. Why, Joel? Because you want to be healthy. So if someone's, let me ask you this though, besides just making impact on someone else's life, which we know is key, but let's just use that example, right? Going to the gym. Why do you do that, Joel? Because it makes me healthy. I want to live longer for my kids. Oh, okay. Joel, why do you go to work? I got to make money. Got to support my family. That's my why. Joel, why do you give? What's the answer? What would you tell people, John, if they're listening? You're like, giving is like a superpower because if you want to be wealthier, more kind, more patient with your kids. Like, what would you say? Like, what does giving do as a superpower? Have you seen either in your own life or just to others and the people that are the most generous? What typically is also a fact for these people?
Well, I think that when you have meaning in your life, it's it's so much all the chores become easier, right? So, giving gives you purpose. It gives you meaning, and um, and then there's like, no, I'm not a scientist, but there's plenty of social science and even biological science coming out that kind of goes like, when you do these things that bring you joy and bring you meaning, you're happier, you're less stressed, right? You're a better person, you're a better parent, you're a better boss, you're a better worker, you're a better athlete. So, I think that's one answer. But ultimately, a step above that, I think, is that people want to create change in the world. Like they want to leave a mark in some way. And I mean, as a
Mhm.
parent, you leave a mark. So on the causes that you care about, what are you actually doing for those things? And the only way to leave a mark is by giving, whether it's your time, your talent, or your money.
Yep.
Um, so there's only one way to do it, really. It's to participate, to be active in so doing. And by doing that, by creating that mark, feeling like you're doing something, you end up getting as much in return for yourself as you create for other people. And that's one of the least talked about things in the giving world that I think is really important. It can't be taken out of context. But this idea that when you help other people, you're not just creating impact for them, you're also creating impact on yourself, right? Like you're making yourself better by helping other people better. Um, and what my advice to donors is, let yourself go there. Let
Okay.
yourself admit that it's okay. This sort of almost selfish side of giving, where it's like, wow, like, you know what? Don't tell anyone, but like, I'm a lot happier since I started volunteering. Or I'm performing better at work ever since I started, using some of my money in the following way.
Yep.
We have three beliefs at Charitable Impact. The first belief is everyone in the world has something they care about changing. Everyone cares about something changing. The second belief is everyone has something to give towards that thing changing, whether it's your time, your money, your talent. Everyone has something to give. The third thing is that when you give, you get something in return. That third belief is what I was just talking about. Now, just pause for a second and note what we did not say as one of our beliefs is everyone gives, right? Because we don't believe that. We believe everyone can give
Mm.
because everyone has something they care about. And when they do give, they get something in return. And that happens to be true of everyone that I've ever met. So the difference is those who do something about that and those who don't. And those who do, I've very rarely met someone who kind of goes, you know what, I wish I hadn't done, looking back at my life, right? You know what I'm going to say here, right?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
don't meet a lot of people like 85, 90, coming into the end of their life, kind of looking back going, I wish I hadn't given back so much. I wish I hadn't participated in community. In fact, people who get
Yeah.
older say the exact opposite of that. They go, you know what? I spent too much time thinking just about myself.
Yep. Yep. Wow. Yeah. You nailed it, dude. I love that. Um, I want to wrap things up here in a little bit, but I'm just curious, what's the future of charitable giving in your opinion, and how do you envision charitable impact and their role in shaping that?
Well, I think without intervention of organizations like Charitable Impact, and we're not alone, uh, the future of charitable giving could be bleak, because the trend is the same in the United States as it is in Canada, that less people are participating in it than they were before. I happen to believe that with, you know, the right tools and support mechanisms that get at the human beings themselves and say, hey, here's how you can create change in the world without telling them what to create change for, because that has to come from them. The future can be really cool. So I actually see a future where charitable actions become more a part of our individual lives, in part thanks to them becoming more a part of the communities that we're involved in. So it's a different topic, but if you said, "Hey, John, like, do you have vision for how charitable actions get integrated into like sports teams?" I'd say, yeah, I'll tell you what I think about that. How about the workplace? I'd say, yeah, I got some real important thoughts about how we can integrate giving into the workplace. How about as a consumer, when you go and you buy those Reebok shoes, do you see a world where that becomes a charitable interaction? Charitable interactions result from you doing that, and I would say, yeah, I see that. And so I actually see a world where charitable giving gets integrated into the things that we participate in real life. But here's the difference, uh, and why that doesn't happen today is because like when you go shopping, everyone's like, "Here's the charity we've chosen to support as like Reebok or Nike or whatever," and we better in it. And it's like you kind of get to the till, like the shopping thing you said earlier, and it's like, "Oh man, really? I've never even heard of that charity, or maybe I have heard of that charity and I don't like it." So um, the future is, these communities create opportunity for people to participate in giving at a level that includes that person can participate in giving towards what they themselves choose, right? So in other words, if on your soccer team you've got a Christian, a Jew, a Muslim, and an atheist, no problem, right? You can all support what you care about and still be a part of this soccer club. And so this donor advised fund, this giving tool that Charitable Impact is ultimately built on, is really, really key to that future, right? I don't know that we're going to be the ones that succeed at a level that I think is possible, but I basically guarantee that there will be a socially networked charitable bank type of entity in the future, and it will be powered by individual citizens and companies and communities and classrooms and things like that who all participate in charitable giving by making giving a part of what they're already doing.
Dude, amazing, impactful. I love it. And also, I think there's a part of that habit loop you're talking about, getting that generosity muscle to exercise is also a big piece of that makes it easy. And we talk about like atomic habits, like James Clear talks about that, right? Make it effortless, make it easy, make it obvious, and automate it. And that's what you guys are doing. And you're taking away that friction for somebody. It's so amazing. I love it. Dude, last but not least, well, first of all, anything else that you want to, you wish I'd asked you that I didn't? And if not, I want to give a call to action and just let people know where they can find you and connect with you and do more good.
Um, no, the one thing I'd want to repeat is like, I think one of the most important things at Charitable Impact is our beliefs. Like, if you're a listener, or to everyone who's listening right now, what I'd want to say is like, is it true that you care about something in the world changing? And when you say, yeah, that's true, just do a quick mind note on what that is. Like what, not 100 things, but what two or three things are there? And then go to number two, or second belief. What is it that you have to give towards that? And, and if you ultimately believe that when you give, you are personally going to get something in return, then, the call to action is like, then do something about it. Start doing something.
Yeah.
Sort of get off the couch and go for the walk if the analogy was exercise, right? And if you don't like walking, you can play squash. And if you don't like squash, you can do yoga. And if you don't like yoga, you can, ride a bike. And if you don't like riding a bike, you can play basketball. You get my point? So if you're not interested in cancer, you can do, Lou Gehrig's disease. If you're not into Lou Gehrig's disease, you can do, you know, name something else health. If you're not into health, you can do poverty. If you're not into poverty, you can do climate change. If you're not into climate change, you can do, education. So there's something for everyone. Everyone cares about something changing, and there's something charitable to address what you care about changing. So start doing it. That's what I want people to do. And
Yeah.
where charitable impact comes in is we're just saying, hey, well, we're here to support you along that journey.
Yeah. So good. So good. World changer, man. John Bromley, tell everybody where they can find you, connect with you, either on social media, learn more about you, or just the website and where they can get involved.
Yeah, well, so Charitable Impact is we're charitableimpact.com, easy to find. Our social media is at We Are Charitable. Whether it's here or there or everywhere. So yeah, come find us, follow us. We'd love for you to engage and pick up the phone and ask us some questions. We've got human beings who love to talk to you as well. So come out and join us, and whether you talk to us or use Charitable Impact, just get out there and find out how fun it can be to make giving a part of your lifestyle.
Yeah. Amazing, brother. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Joel. Yeah.